Hello. Nice hoodie,
Hey,
Justin.
how's it going?
Good, thanks. You?
Good. Um, yeah, let's see wait, are we in the right meeting? I think we're in the right meeting. I'm gonna click this and see if I end up in a different meeting.
Yeah, I think this is the right one. It's the
I don't
LFX
know. I
one.
ended up in a
Unless we've
waiting
got.
room.
Oh, okay.
Um, Let me see what happens here. I'm gonna mute in case things go badly. The calendar invite I had says there's like some other potential meeting room, but maybe this is wrong. Maybe I think we're in the right place. Um, yeah.
Hello, hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Awesome. We are in the right place. Hey, Santiago.
Oh, how are things over in New York?
They're pretty good. You know, one or two minor things occasionally happen in the city. No, it's been extremely hectic, as I'm sure it has been for you. How
Yeah,
are you? Is it submitted?
the papers or the tenure
The
packet?
packet.
Now, that's a month away still.
All right.
Yeah, yeah,
We
we'll have
should,
to chat
if
about it.
if we have like 5 minutes after this, you and I should have a strategy powwow here.
Yeah, let's chat about it. It'd be good to sync.
Right. I think we're getting. Do we have the whole steering committee here? Are we missing someone?
Yeah, I think we have everybody. We do.
Wow. I don't know if that has happened before.
Uh, no comments there. Um, should we start? Should we wait for a couple of more people to join us, though? I was expecting a little less quorum considering usually the meetings that happen right at the turn of the month, like today, sometimes confuse people, but I'm happy to see some faces. Justin counts for three already, so
I know Marcella had a couple items on the agenda, so I'm not sure if she will be here. But
yeah, I think my recollection is she usually joins a little later. Uh, I don't think I don't know what reason, maybe like she has another meeting, so.
I
Okay, let's,
will mention that we have the meeting notes doc, and as of right now, there are 0 names in that doc for this particular time. So I'll start that process. And I'm just gonna, people who I see, I'm just gonna start randomly pasting their info from below. So if you see your name pop up, then I have beaten you to it. But I'm not doing this for everybody. So if I have to scroll down too far, which, okay, I give up, basically. Yeah. All right. So please add yourself in. I'll also just like, because I'm already talking and just get it out of the way, mention that this meeting is a meeting of the Linux Foundation, CNCF, And your participation in this meeting is an agreement to abide by the Linux Foundation's Code of Conduct and Antitrust policies, which can be found in the meeting notes, in the repository, online, all over the place. So, all right. That's all I have to say. Santiago.
Yeah, well, quick parenthesis here. Did you know this from the top of your mind, or do you have it printed out?
I say that about 5 times a week
I got it.
in different meetings. Although, yeah.
I try to do it, but it's a mouthful. So every now and then I just kind of stumble with my own feet and say like, well, okay, you know the rest, and move on. I'm not about it, that is. So yeah, let's get started. I think the first item on the agenda, even if it's not in the agenda, is course introductions. Although I see, oh, I think I may recognize, or may not recognize one or two faces. So why don't we go with new community member introductions?
So if you haven't been to one before, just unmute, say hi, explain who you are.
Oh, hello, my name is Sean. I'm a undergrad in Professor Justin Kappas' Secure Systems Lab. I'm looking into a senior design project in toto at the station for like Rust and Crates.io ecosystem. I've already received a few comments by Santiago in the Slack chat. I'm looking forward to learning more. Thank you.
Hey, Patrick, you have been here before. I know that you're a friend of In-toto ecosystem, so you're probably on your face. Welcome to me. I don't know if you would like to introduce yourself, Patrick, or
Sure. I've been here some time before, but hi everybody. I'm more on the GitTough side of things, also from NYU. Maintainer of GitTough, loosely interested in what's going on here, decided to pop on by today.
yeah, well, welcome. Always good to see you around. I think everybody else has been a recurrent participant, so I think we can jump ahead into the item that I see.
Hold on, we got one more here.
Oh, we have one more.
Hi,
Oh.
Anshit, and mostly I work with the Esbornet project, so that has been my entryway into working with and using In-toto in general. But yeah.
Welcome. There you go, ahead of myself. Forgot that Justin counted for 3. I sneaked in an item on the agenda. I wanted everybody to congratulate Aditya and John for joining the ITSC for back in 5. I'm really glad to have them join us. Sure, the contributors to the steering committee. I don't know, John or Aditya, do you have any words you want to say?
No, thanks for the wishes and happy to be here.
Ditto.
I just want to say, like, I'm really happy that we've had such people that have done so much excellent work for our community in so many ways get the recognition they deserve by being in the ITSC, because like they've really done fantastic, deep work, and it's just good that they get this.
Thanks, Jess.
Questions again. Then let's jump into the content. I think now that Marcella is with us, I think Marcella, the floor is yours. You have 2 items to discuss. The first one being attestations versus SVRs and PR 549.
Yeah, I think PR 549 is to give everyone some context here. Several of us were discussing this on Slack, right? We think it's mostly AI generated. It is also for AI. So this PR essentially wants to introduce some sort of attestation essentially recording a decision that an agent makes. We've seen a PR like this a couple of years ago about deployment decisions at sort of an orchestration gateway type component. And in both cases, we've said so far that, well, this seems really like a policy decision, so what should be generated is, back then a VSA. Now we have the simple verification results predicate, so we should be using that. The person who posted that PR had mentioned they would join this meeting. I don't think I see them here. So mostly, I guess what I'm trying to tease out maybe is, is this a pattern that we want to sort of explicitly highlight as part of the simple verification results predicate? Maybe give some examples just so that folks, looking at that predicate don't say, oh, but I need something new because it doesn't have this one field or that other field. I think Andrew, who's here, made it pretty clear in the predicate specification that there are several fields that are recommended but not necessarily required. So, such as like policy files and all of that. So anyway, that was just kind of the discussion I wanted to kick off. I think Andrew also wanted to talk about the general evolution of the SVR predicate. So I don't know if this is a segue into that as well, or if that should be its own separate discussion. But yeah.
I suspect that SVR evolution, whatnot, would likely be better as a separate topic. Just because shortly after we accepted that predicate type, there were some proposed changes, both by Tom and Puerco. Puerco and I were discussing some of it, but we never got to a resolution on it. And I think those conversations have since been reaped by the we don't pay for Slack Enterprise bot. So they've been lost to the locked history. So I'll need to restart some of those conversations. But I mean that's to say that SVR, I think that I haven't looked in well, is there a separate kind of attestation, Marcella, that you're talking about that's similar to SVR? Or just this one, the PR about the decision receipt predicate as the only one?
So I think the decision receipt predicate brought that question up again, but like I said, there was an older PR that I linked in the notes. I can try to link it here also. And so, yeah, like I'm highlighting a pattern in a couple of these PRs, right? That folks want to be able to capture decisions that maybe they don't immediately perceive as policy decisions, but ultimately are, some sort of, policy decision. In fact, like in that PR, even though I agree that it doesn't make a ton of sense. I skipped most of those comments, to be perfectly honest. I still think that one of the sort of main limitations they pointed out with the SVR was that it couldn't contain a policy, or that it didn't contain a policy field, right? So to me, again, like even there, you're looking for some sort of policy verification. Same with the admission control deployment decision predicate that Laurent proposed a couple years ago. And we kind of closed the proposal for the same reason. So my question to you, just Andrew, would be, are you intending to change the semantics of the SVR at all? Or is this really just kind of format? changes, you think?
Um, I, if I'm trying to recall some of the conversations about that I've had with Parker about it before. Um, I'm I mean I don't think that I'm not aware of anybody that's using it right now. So there's certainly some things that can be changed. Yeah, I know I haven't started using it in our build pipeline yet, to my knowledge.
I
And
see.
also
Okay.
hasn't changed to propose using this as something other than the VSA either. Um, in regards to the the policy um, part of it, the the intention that I had is that if the policy is um, a critical part of the verifier, then it does make sense to have that as part of that verifier in addition to the ID. Um, I don't know if that means that it is less optional. Like I don't know if that means that it should be promoted to not be an optional thing. The challenge is that um, you have to be able to point to a stable resource indicator for that policy, which isn't always possible to do. So I think that's one reason that I didn't, that it doesn't make sense to require it because not all policy engines have that ability to have the stable resource or the stable URI that you can point to.
Yeah, just to jump in really quickly, and then John can go. Like, I I don't think I'm suggesting that the policy field should become required. I do think, though, that maybe we just need to point out that the sort of pattern can be supported by the SVR rather than needing to define new predicates every time.
Yeah,
And so
and
maybe, yeah,
it is in there as an optional policy information example. So it is in the SVR specification.
yeah. No, I pointed the PR to that example actually because I agree. It is in there. Um I don't think that people that propose predicates necessarily always look at the examples, unfortunately. So yeah, maybe it's just a matter of, in the sort of use cases, this description as that's up top to say something like, decisions of any kind can probably be captured with this. But anyway, I'll let you go.
Yeah, so I was just gonna actually, it took me a bit to find the optional policy information because I started at the top and I saw the fields that were defined, which were only the required fields. I'm not sure if it makes sense or would be helpful for people like me who start reading at the top and don't scroll all the way down, to put optional fields in there as well. But I did see in the verifier, specific entry a reference to the In-toto extensions. And so perhaps this might be an interesting approach for submissions of new predicate types would be to ask people not only like the justification for the new predicate type, but if they, is there a reason they couldn't extend an existing type using these optional fields to accomplish some of the things that they're interested in doing? So that's kind of like maybe the specific first part of this. The second part, um, we probably should do something around AI. I think there's a lot of people who have these ideas, and everything I've seen from a lot of the models is um, not great with supply chain security. Like a comprehensive understanding, especially of technologies like In-toto and Tough. It's not super helpful in this sort of detailed way that's very important for the type of work that we do. And I know Andrew has a couple of different ideas around this, but whether it's a conference talk or something else, I think there's some interesting things that we could capture that maybe would help direct people in the right way, but secondly, might be great for getting some extra like marketing publicity around the In-toto project for nothing else. But Andrew?
Yeah, I was just gonna react to the extensions part. Like there is one of the tensions that I see here is that I think that the for the SVR, a verifier policy isn't required, but it's not a required field that must be present, but I think that it's a required field that parsers should understand. And like I don't know if there's any way to differentiate between that because like it's a field that if it's present, it is critical. And so therefore I think that it should be parsed. Or is it just that we should say the verifier policy um, is required, but it can be null. So if it's not present, if it's not parsed, then you just assume that it's null.
I strongly favor the latter, where you explicitly say, like, you have, if people have to parse it, just make them have to list the thing and then say it's null or have a special value for it or something. Because there's like a whole bunch of historical problems, even though this does create a little bit of a backwards compatibility issue, perhaps in some cases. There's like a whole bunch of historical problems you have by not being explicit and just letting there be some like unstated default. So, yeah, as a philosophy, I think that's stronger.
Okay, so in this case, we can modify the SVR. We can bump the version of the SVR to add an additional required property for the predicate, the verifier.policy, that has both the URI and the digest. And if it's not present, the parser would just interpret that as there is no policy representation.
Or if you put null or some other, like there should be some explicit way to say, yeah.
Okay.
Is Santiago back? Or are we going to go with AI?
I'm back, but yeah, why don't we go with AI? Floor is yours again, Marcella.
Yeah. This has been coming up in a lot of spaces. So it's come up in the salsa space. I know Andrew can talk more about that as well. It's come up just in OpenSSF in general. And so, yeah, I think just I saw that I think Jack already posted the link to the current OpenSSF proposal for AI usage and contributions. I know the OpenSSF mentorship program also put out sort of project level AI guidance. So I think there are several sources, and I think Santiago, you had mentioned having like a 6-story guidance potentially as well. So Aditya and I were talking about this last week and just kind of saying that you know, it would be great for In-toto to adopt something sooner rather than later, just because we are seeing AI slop being submitted as PRs, just spamming PRs in general. So yeah. So if I were to make a recommendation, we could maybe use the OpenSSF policy as a starting point. If anyone here knows about the CNCF and whether they have a policy, we could adopt that as a CNCF project. But yeah, that was my agenda.
So I know one was just proposed for the OpenSSF at the TAC level. Is there, do we know if there's something like that coming from the CNCF that might help us as a sort of foundation?
So I know that Kubernetes recently updated their contribution policies, and I think it's fairly aligned with what the OpenSSF TAC is proposing. I think the big changes that they noted there were not allowing the models or AI to sign off on the commits. There was a legal argument made that they cannot sign the DCO, which is, I think logical. The other question I think that came up is around copyright. What is a sufficient amount of human influence on the AI generated code such that you actually can assign a copyright to it? I think this is the only part of this that has legally been answered is if it's 100% AI generated without any human influence, it cannot be copyrighted. I don't know where the boundary is in between there. Just prompting appears to be not enough. There needs to be some other extra direction provided. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that part. The other debatable thing is if there is a separate attribute to add to commits, whether it's assisted by or something else that's not an official, Git property. Kubernetes decided to not do that. You have to disclose you are using an AI model, and I think which one in the comments of the PR, but they don't want anything in the Git commit history because vendors and other people were then advertising that their tool was used by Kubernetes, which was kind of a just uncomfortable thing. I think people didn't like that. So
I mean, can't they still do that? I guess if you don't have to list which model in the PR, then I'm kind of confused, like why it matters if it's a PR in the PR versus the Git history. Is it just harder to look up?
I think it was something about the way in which they were querying for the information to try and show probably GitHub rate limits or something. I don't know.
Argument not to use GitTough, I guess, because you might stick that info all in the same Git repo then, but that's kind of silly. Okay.
I mean, I guess the other thing is like, what are the outcomes we're trying to get out of adopting an AI policy at the in-toto level, right? Like, what are we trying to prevent? Are we trying to prevent our inboxes filling up with a lot of junk? Are we trying to, like, I think there are a few different factors here. I know, like, for example, some have outright banned it, not because of low quality submissions alone, but more because they think that they can't build as much of a community around the project. They can't, build a sort of contributor ladder if they're constantly interacting, if everything they're saying is going through an LLM filter before it reaches the actual developer. And so like I think there was a blog post, no, I know there was a blog post by someone from the Zig Foundation last week about this. So I'm trying to understand what would we like to prevent? I see Andrew has a comment in the chat. It's to create a part of the reason to create a policy is to have something to point to when closing issues and PRs. And yeah, that's a pretty good outcome as well from adopting said policy. Though we might get what is that? A rogue LLM writing a hit piece on us saying, "Can you believe they closed this PR?" Andrew?
Yeah, and I excuse me, I followed or I dug into a little bit of the PR that was against um the attestation repo because the same actors were making issues on Salsa. They were making issues against some Microsoft Project 2. They were um, Luke Hines was saying that they duplicated or they re-implemented some what he and 50 contributors are doing for Nono. They found my own personal repo where I used to create a build type for Salsa Provenance. So they're just all over the place, and like part of the challenge I think is that or agents in open source create a volume problem, and um, it's sometimes hard to defend a stance because you don't want to just be seen as a community that's just randomly closing PRs that seem to fit criteria. Um, one of there is I can find it really quick. Um, there is a one of the PRs that was closed in the Microsoft repo actually had the same identity that commented afterwards that they um, disagree with the statements that were made, supposedly referring to some process that they started as well. And it's like this is the type of thing that it's the type of action that would be good to have a defense for that you can say we did this because it followed these behavior smells. Um, this is how you can appeal it or just reopen it or this is how to continue engaging in the conversation, but recognizing that the contributor or the maintainer time is a very valuable resource, and the spraying of low quality, confusing, circuitous, self-reinforcing conversations just does nothing but take up a lot of time and energy. Um, so being able to say as a community, this is something that doesn't meet our standards. We're happy for contributions, but please follow these standards that we have. Um, like to me, that feels like it provides an avenue for interacting. And within Salsa, one of the things that we were saying is that we can't necessarily require that people come to the calls because they're not time zone friendly for everybody. Um, but like how so if you can't require that people come to the calls, but you still want to have this open community, there are challenges. Some communities might use a system like Vouch, where it actually prevents engagement unless you have been vouched for, and that's I think not something that I see In-toto wanting to go towards because you're cutting off contributions unless you've been vouched for. Um, there's other approaches where you can't submit um, pull requests that exceed some number of lines of code until you have built up there's a ladder of the number of lines of code which you can modify. And so like there's different approaches, and I think they each have they come from different places. They have different benefits and drawbacks.
I would say also, at least on the sixth tour side, I think yes, having something to point towards, but also there really is a bunch of AI contributors that are really just trying to throw the LLM and let it do it, but they're not necessarily malicious. They're just It's just a claw instance. So if they look at those AI policies, they may actually not spam the repo. Something that we saw now, for example, is I think we were expecting somebody to show up that may be very likely a claw instance that said I will show up because that's how these things work. They don't know they can't show up, right? So I think in a sense providing that sense of guidance and guardrails is good. I am not against people contributing. Pretty much the 6-door policy has been, it is about personal responsibility, right? There's really a big jump from somebody who's driving these things to try to contribute to a project because they legitimately care, and somebody who's trying to farm reputation at the expense of open source contributors. So I think that is, at least to me, something that will tangibly show. I suspect that people that are trying to use these tools to help wouldn't be, well, depending on how we frame it, of course, wouldn't be too bummed if they see an AI contribution policy. John?
Yeah, I think maybe, at least for today, the minimum I would expect us to do is to try and circumvent any potential future legal issues. So I think adopting the idea of not using a sign off from AI would be an appropriate place to start. And beyond that, I think I generally agree, Santiago. Good code is good code. If it passes the muster of a project, I don't have a strong opinion about you decide to uh, at a project basis accept that or not. Just anecdotally, one other thing I've seen is trying to clean up our open issues on the project is helpful. We've gotten a few PRs for things that we have not prioritized doing, and some AI picks it up, or some human picks it up and drafts a long PR, hoping to contribute something that's actually not a priority right now for the project. So it's a slightly related thing, but James.
Thanks. I just wonder if there's an opportunity to throw the AI at the review to help triage, because my sense is that where this ends is that no one's going to be looking at the code. Maybe not now, but by the end of the year. So I don't know. I think maybe communities are going to have to head in that direction somehow. I don't know whether there are AIs that we can run in communities for free, or whether there's funding, that sort of thing. Anyway, just an observation.
Yes, so we do have access, or we can get access to GitHub Copilot Enterprise. I did somehow accidentally clicked that button on a PR and requested a review, and it found an indentation error in something that affected the logic that wasn't covered by tests or something else. It was actually a good thing that happened. However, Microsoft is changing the licensing for it, and I don't know how that will affect the CNCF deal with them. So there's going to be a 27x multiplier on your credit usage if you use Opus 4.7, and like a 6 or 7x multiplier on any OpenAI models used. So the quantity of reviews we may be able to do could be substantially limited by that. However, folks like Google published a blog post on CNCF recommending the use of AI to respond to many of these things. So I absolutely think as a community, we should be pushing back against the AI model providers and vendors to say, as an open source projects, you should be funding assisting us in some way. And I've already communicated that to as many people as I can, and will continue to do so.
But part of the challenge is that in order for you to have a good signal, is you have to clearly have it documented what you're trying to compare against. You have to have those guardrails. So regardless of whether or not you can run something, you need to make sure that whatever the policy is that you want is documented, that you have in whatever configuration that this is something you want to use as part of the analysis. But a lot of these issues that we've seen about like reputation harvesting, that's not something that's available from the context of the PR itself. So you're not going to be able to have a really, in a lot of situations, you're not going to be able to have a really good signal from this NPR review from these agentic tools. Um, I have started to become very wary of running AI against these things locally, because I know it's really easy to hide HTML in there and it's really easy to have prompt injection. And so if I don't trust one of the people or one of the identities that's engaging, I'm going to be much less likely to run anything locally. And I'm not aware of any prompt injection attacks that have actually worked in that, but it's not long before it's going to start happening.
Okay, so let me try to steer this back. The broad consensus I get is we do want to establish a policy. I think effectively that's the good first step. We want to put it at the community level, mostly so that we can have something that we can refer to when we are making decisions related to AI contributions. I think there is a broad consensus that we're not that we at least at the sort of like a legalese layer, we want to take care of like the DCL being signed by bot and stuff like that. I think there's some very slight quibbling as to whether we want to go with CNCF's posture or OpenSSF posture, or we want to just craft our own. Is that a rough like a good characterization of the discussion so far? Part of me is tempted to save us cycles because I don't think we have a lot of them, and just really just adopt a bespoke one. I'm close to wrapping up the 6.1, which I think I would say is like compatible with the OpenSSF one, with just like minor tweaks that I borrowed from the NumPy project, mostly around personal responsibility. But yeah, is that a good characterization? I personally hope that at least just having the policy in and by itself would scare away the bots. I see some brother sort of like nodding and stuff. So should I call a vote for a particular one, or should we collect a couple of options and then resolve it async on the channel? Who should we
I think
denote as a responsible individual for this?
maybe we could start an issue on the community repo and share particular policies that we would be interested in adopting. And then we just post on Slack to point people to that issue.
Yeah, that's a good way to start. I don't feel we're in a rush either. I think we just really need to make some directional, consistent progress. I think that's good. Anything else we should chat about this? This may even be a good segue to the next topic that John put in. Okay, John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so if folks did or didn't see, there was a blog post from the CNCF projects team from Jiffy about a new piece of tooling, which is a dot projects repo, which will eventually show up in the org at some point in time. There's a lot of manual processes around managing like maintainers for projects and the locations of different types of metadata and information. And so they're working on some tooling to automate the collection of that and then also give a place for us as the project maintainers to try and manage those sorts of things. So rather than us having to do a PR to the CNCF, I don't even know which repo it is, like community repo or maintainers repo to update a gigantic CSV, we can instead just do a PR to our own repo and update some YAML file or something like that. I think there's also an intent to try and describe sub-projects as well and potentially point to some relevant metadata for things like the EU CRA. So things like pointing to SBOMs or build provenance or things like that. They're open to feedback. All of the tooling they've developed for this is open source. I'll find the blog post and share that with folks. But maybe I'll stop there before talking about .GitHub because Justin has his hand raised.
Is this like .GitHub is a thing that actually has meaning to GitHub? Is .project also going to have this, or is this just like CNCF is going to look for things with their scripts in this location?
Yeah, this is just a CNCF specific thing.
Is the goal
And
to,
so
sorry, is the goal to make it something beyond CNCF at some point, or just?
I don't know that the tooling would be particularly useful to other folks because I think it's going to integrate with most of the CNCF style infrastructure. I think one of the other things it was going to tie into was the CNCF landscape as well, potentially. Which someone reminded me we need to put Witness and Archivista on that because they're not there and they have cool logos to put there and share with folks. Then on the .github side of things, I know we talked a little bit last month about reviewing things like GitHub Actions and others in the projects for all the sorts of best practices as a security focused project. We should be sure that we're following pinned actions and least permissions and all that sort of stuff. With the .github, we could have or help ensure all of the projects are pointing to a consistent security policy and other things like that. I think we can have workflows that are automatically run across multiple projects if we wanted to do something like Zizmor scanning against the GitHub Actions and other things like that. I don't know, for one, if anybody is interested in setting this up or if individual projects would be opposed to having some of these sorts of things set up. I'm not sure how the permissions and overrides and things like that work. If you want at an individual project level to not, use the In-toto security policy or something. And then maybe the other part of this is just cleaning up some old repos. I know we've got 44 repos in the In-toto org, and there might be a dozen that have had updates in the last year. There's a lot that haven't had any updates since 2024 or previously. And rather than getting a bunch of vulnerability disclosures and things like that for those unmaintained projects, we could just archive them potentially.
I like the sound of that. And sort of an opposite note of something that might have become sort of accidentally archived but shouldn't be. I think it's time to see through the policy work to completion. Like we have this doc that Marcella, Trishank, and Snehal worked on that also got a lot of comments, and I think it's about time we start moving them over into GitHub and, publish an initial draft and iterate quickly and get it over the line. Yeah, and consider this also as sort of like a call to action for anyone working on cool policy tooling or enforcement tooling to come by and see how the framework, like if the tools or systems match the framework, because the framework's now trying to be very agnostic of specific policy languages or engines and just talk about capabilities that people can implement using maybe Witness, maybe Attestation Verifier, maybe Macaron, etc., etc. I think maybe John got his hand up first.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say we should definitely review the set of editors and other things like that. It's a fairly small set of people right now, and it might be helpful in moving it forward to have some additional folks on there. I'm fairly certain the requirements for the process already have a threshold of just more than one individual. So I don't think the process would be overrun, hopefully, by having a few additional people.
Hello. I'm sorry, I've been quiet this anymore. Like sort of like in between stuff. But what policy document are you talking about? Is it a
Oh,
night or
sorry, Sivana, your voice is a bit muffled. I didn't really catch.
no? Wait a second, give me
You're asking what policy document can we put a link in the notes?
Yes. So it was a Google Doc, and I think I'm also on my work laptop, which I don't think I've ever opened it on this one. So I may not be able to find it. Andrew beat me to it. Maybe. Blah, 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 blah.
There are two open ITs as well, ITE 10 and ITE 11, which I think each have some draft content there, and as well as open PRs to update each of them, or at least ITE 10.
I think I'm on the hook for making a potential change to that I-10 PR, but I don't think it's anything major.
Yeah, cool. I don't have the agenda anymore. I don't know if we went off topic. Yeah.
So maybe just tying back to the .github stuff, I will create a community issue for that as well with some more concrete proposals of things that we could do just to get some feedback and help folks understand what the implications of it would be. And then I don't know, should we create an issue with a list of proposed projects to archive? Would that be another, or is that something we're just comfortable doing as the ITSC, anything that hasn't been updated in the last 2 years or something?
I propose we make the list and then we present it on the next community meeting or something. Oh, we can do like a summer. Can't believe it's not spring anymore cleaning, and then we go through these.
Sounds good.
Next thing, super quick, just Open Source Summit NA is coming up in a couple of weeks. So if folks are there, I would love to catch up in person. And hopefully, I know I'll see at least a couple of people there. So
Yeah, I won't be making it, and I'm very sad about that, but hope it's a good conference.
I may or may not make it. Depends.
Aren't you practically next door, Santiago?
Well, no, the Midwest is big. I think you can fit the whole of Europe in the Midwest. So it's probably like a 10-hour drive or something. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it, but I need to figure out my tenure packet and all that, which is like the next week.
Yeah, I guess John is a lot more next door.
I don't even. Oh, John, are you in New York? I was.
Yeah, I'm like a 15-minute drive away, so.
Oh wait, this is closer than I thought. Okay. Oh no, it's not that close. Misleading. Wisconsin is really big. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in the very southern part of Wisconsin, and so driving back and forth is, yeah, it's like 4.5, 5 hours to get to the Twin Cities from the bottom of Wisconsin.
200 hours walking from. So I better start.
Yeah, and that's US 70 mile, 75 mile per hour speed limits driving for 4.5 hours. So it's a good, I think it's 350 miles or something.
I'll investigate. Hopefully I'll be there and join you guys.
Right. Do we have anything else to discuss?
Oh, there's AOV if anybody wants to bring it up.
There was, I thought, did I see something about network attestations or something that was in here and then disappeared? Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll chat about that in SBOM meeting as well too. So
Cool. Right. Very well.
shadow ban.
Right.
All right.
I guess we're gonna call it.
Enjoy
Thanks all.
Later.
the
Bye bye.
weekend.
Bye.
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 Cheers, bye.